Test, test. This is for the folks online. Make sure you can hear us.
Do we have anyone showing?
He's in the lobby.
My high school friends is down there. He's a chief photog for Ralph. I can't think of where he's at.
Do you know where?
Oh, much better.
Remind me to tell you because Jason will kill me if I'm referring to somewhere else, but I will say.
Hey, Ralph, can you hear us?
Michael Wolf is my buddy.
Oh,
Hi,
yeah.
Ralphie.
I was like, come on. And welfare. Yeah, go. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3, 4. The time right now is 4:02, and we will officially begin the Board of Directors meeting for Education Alliance for today. It is the 20th of October. We're here at the Central Administration Building with that. So item 102 will go over to Julia for roll call. Julia.
Michelle Anderson.
Here.
Christine Brown Gallagher.
Here.
Melissa Dedmond. Not here. Kaylin Evans. Victoria Mason. Here. Landon Miller.
Present.
Chris Morgan is with us virtually.
Here.
Manny Ortiz. Not here. Ralph Rodriguez.
If I have the right
Here.
if it's green.
Julia Rogers is here. Dave Shintani. Not present. David Taylor. Not present. And Sarah Gobs-Hill.
Here.
Oh, and Manny Ortiz, for the record, arriving.
At 4:03.
I don't want to
By
say
1
late.
minute, 1
I
minute.
didn't
He's
say
good.
late. 4:03, 1 minute.
Hi, Manny. Okay, so we do have quorum, it looks like. Thank you, everyone, for showing up today to talk about some important things. But before we talk about some important things, we'll turn things over to public comment. So, Brittany, do we have public comment today?
None at this time.
Okay, no comment at this time. Moving along to item 201, we're going to get a welcome from Sarah Gobs-Hill and Board President myself. Sarah, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll
Okay,
kick
cool.
us off.
And then I'll follow up.
So again, thank you guys so much for making time and joining us today. You know, I really appreciate when you can make the meetings here, and you guys have a lot going on. I hope everyone is enjoying the kickoff to fall. The weather has been so beautiful, and we've had some really great things happening here at the districts. Today's meeting, you know, we're going to run through and start by hopefully welcoming a new board member to our group, and then I'll be sharing some updates about the work that we're doing and some hopefully significant changes that we'll be making to our bylaws that we'll get to discuss a little bit more into our organization. So that's kind of what it looks like for us today.
You did have latitude for a warm re-welcome for someone.
It's a good call. I thought
Yep.
you were doing that. So for the record, I'd like to say we're so excited to have Christine join us again. For those of you on the board, many of you know this, but Christine is now a mom here. And we're so excited to hear that she just loves being a mom of her little boy. So, yeah.
I do, and he's not here right now, but I'm gonna, present this very low-tech option of my son wearing the little onesie that you all got for him, future Washoe County School District graduate. So that was actually, he's about twice that size now. That was taken a couple of months ago, but it's so wonderful to be back and to be working not just for all y'all's kids, but now for my kid too at this organization.
Yeah.
So
All right,
thanks,
Christine,
everyone.
thank you. Yeah, welcome back. We're excited. I really don't have too much on my report, only a follow-up on the email that I sent last, I guess would have been Thursday. This is asking for the 100% board giving recognition from the Community Foundation of Northern Nevada. It's a pretty simple thing. We have gotten this recognition for decades at this point. It's a pretty simple thing. Basically, they are just looking that 100% of the board donates. It can be any amount, it can be big, it can be small, whatever works. My plea to all of you, whether you're here in person or online, is to make that donation, to do it today, to do it tomorrow, to do it as soon as you can. That deadline is quickly coming up to an end here. We do have a little QR code for you here, making it nice and easy. So you can scan it on your phone, and that will take you to the Ed Alliance donate page. So you can do it there. And again, any amount, pretty simple stuff. And we hope to get that recognition from the Community Foundation once again. So if you have not done so, I know that there's a couple of people still needing to do so, myself included, but I always like to be the last minute. I like to keep Sarah on her toes. It's very easy to do so. So if you can, make that donation, and we'd really appreciate it. So with that, there's a QR code for you on the screen, and that's my report.
Excellent, thank you. And again, we so appreciate it. We know how much time and energy that you guys spend reading all of the updates that I send you and coming to events and showing up at schools to help with supply donations and all of those sort of things. So we really, really do appreciate what you guys give to this organization. Yep.
Cool. Well, that's it for me. We're going to go on to next agenda item here is the approval of the minutes from our August 25th meeting. For that, we'll need a motion and a second.
I'll move to approve.
All right, Victoria with the motion, Kalen with the second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
No oppositions. It looks like the meetings have been approved. Good job, everyone. Up next, excited for item 203 here. It's always exciting when we have new faces, new experiences, new perspectives joining the board. And for that, I'm going to turn things over to Sarah for consideration of approval of TJ O'Carroll to join our team. And if you get approved, you are going to be playing volleyball/basketball. Okay? That's going to happen. All right.
Excellent. So for those of you who may not know TJ, I'm just really thrilled that he's interested in joining our board. I think that he's going to be an incredible board member. He, like a lot of you, on this board really demonstrates the power of what educated people do in our community. So TJ is a graduate of Washoe County School District, which I always think is really important because we're always talking about how the work we do helps future leaders and what future leaders can do. And I know a number of you who are sitting on this board are in a direct example of where that investment goes, of where our graduates go. And so that's really exciting. He grew up here in Northern Nevada. He went to school at UNR, which I think is fantastic. And I think that his expertise, professional expertise in accounting, he's a partner at Eide Bailey. And I really think that will add a lot of knowledge to our board. And that's really important, especially as we're moving forward with the work that we're doing. Not only do I think that TJ is impressive professionally, but he's really willing. He's the kind of person really willing to give his time. When I met with him, I was like, okay, well, we're in a series of transitions. We're doing this, we're researching that, we want to do this. What do you think? Because some people might be a little bit intimidated by joining an organization at that structure or at that juncture. And he said, no, sounds exciting. I'm really interested. I want to, I really love what public education has done for me and my family, and I care about it in our community. He also, because he understands really the impact teachers can have, he's got kiddos that are in the district, right? And I say that many of you guys, are like me where, this isn't hypothetical. We've got real skin in the game. And so I think that we get to see like the role and, looking at Julia just saying, thank you for what you do. You help us raise our kids, and that's really important. And so he understands that. And when he's not, giving to public education or helping clients do the best they can in terms of their taxes and making sure that financially they're prepared. He likes to spend time with his family, watch sports events, play golf, and turns out basketball, so this is amazing, and take advantage of our outdoor recreational area. So I don't know if anybody has any questions for TJ, but that's my introduction.
Sure. TJ, I'll start. So what kind of got you excited or interested in wanting to join our organization?
Yeah, I think number one, just passion for public education here in Northern Nevada, really Reno specifically. Going through the schools, and wife going through the schools, and kids eventually going to go through. I think there's support that's needed, and recognition needs to be had for a lot of these programs and teachers and this is a good way to help show what our teachers and what our programs do.
What high schools did you go to? I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure.
Reno High.
Reno High. Okay,
Yeah.
both of you guys?
She went to Galena.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a Wooster here. Hogg, Wooster, Galena. Yeah, there's a lot of WCSD. McQueen. Yeah. There we go.
All answers.
Go Lancers. Thank you, Ralph. Awesome. Any other additional questions for TJ here? Yeah, thank you for jumping on. Well, it's not official until we approve it. So the vote could go one way or the other. So we're going to need a motion to approve and then a second, all right? So I'll need a motion to approve and then a second. Anyone want to do that?
I can approve. Motion to approve.
All right, so that is our motion. I will second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any of those opposed?
Aye.
All right, TJ, welcome aboard. Thank you, thank you. And we'll have your official sign ready for you by the next meeting, so it'll be good. All right, cool. Up next, 204 presentation and discussion to provide an update on the school district's chronic absenteeism campaign, as well as the Education Alliance efforts to support identified solutions. So it sounds like a couple of updates here, Sarah.
So if you, in the board handout, we created a visual that really helps to show the campaign that we're currently working on. And I know that we keep talking about that. I feel like it's important every single meeting to bring up why we are currently, working out there with our philanthropic community, as well as our business community, as well as any community members who are interested in helping support these efforts. We really, as we talked about last time, we're seeing a lot of positive growth in this area. Attendance really is improving. The biggest metric that we shared the last time, and I will just sort of continue to have it as a highlight, is, as the district has identified and really communicated out to schools just how important it is to get kids into classes. Teachers and principals and counselors were easy, to be like, yep, tell us what to do. Let's all align our efforts and really making things happen. I would say the next audience that has been really responsive is our parents. I think that once parents really knew what it means to, if you're going to take your kids out, on a trip, maybe it's positive, or maybe it's something that, your family's in crisis and you're like, maybe our kid just doesn't need to get to school today. I think highlighting just how important attendance has been, that has also made a huge impact. And so we have seen from last year, we had about 71% of the schools have shown improved attendance. We are seeing, again, really significant gains in the elementary level. Middle school has also been making bigger increases, and then high school is probably the least of all of the audiences. But, doing really good things. I think it's really incredible that we are supporting a district that has been really very active and innovative with the things that they're doing. When we listen to or look at the research at other districts across the nation, awareness and making it a top priority these districts that are doing it are the ones that are really making a difference. The involvement of the data department with, some of the work that's being done at Harvard, or, leading pieces when it comes to that is really making a difference. So again, the work that we're really doing is focused on the fundraising campaign, and it's really, here is sort of the methodology there. And we talked a little bit about it, but the family resource centers, those resource centers that are across the district, there's 5 of them. They are not funded, they are not funded year over year with district funding. And so they are largely grant supported, but they serve, close to 10,000 individuals in our community annually, and they really make an impact. And their job is to connect students and families with the resources they need, whether that's food, whether that's connection to medical help, whether that's something like rental assistance. And then we've tagged that also with the middle school engagement program. And so again, this idea that communities and schools, has a site coordinator in a number of middle schools, or there's the middle school engagement program that is at other schools because maybe they're above the Title I eligibility, which is generally their focused audience, but really trying to serve all of the middle schools across the district. And again, those relationships that these organizations and that our funds are helping to do are really making a difference. We heard anecdotally, we just wanted to check in and see how people are doing this year. Like, how are those engagement efforts going? And we heard yet again, just really those stories of their ability to provide things that we would consider basic needs, you know, like students coming and maybe not wanting to share or being a little embarrassed about the things that are getting in the way of their getting to school. But because they have these folks in the schools that can build these relationships and ask these questions, you know, and get to the bottom of the problem, they're able to get these resources in the hands of students and their families, and sometimes so quickly that we're seeing improving. So I don't have any specific stories today, but like the intervention department did share with us about, you know, 5 or 6 anecdotes where it's like, oh, this basic need made a huge difference, and now we're seeing this and with the students' attendance. And so that's from the beginning of the school year till now. And I think it, again, really goes to show that not only are we seeing not systematically wide, like the 71%, which is district wide, but again, every single student that has this connection and resource, like that is a student where we're making a difference. And again, the collaborative campaign is called Together for Students and Families. So you might be hearing that more out in our community. And part of the work that we're really trying to do now is try to invite people in so that those who want to see a family resource center have the opportunity to see how these are run. The front packet, the page on the front of our board packet today is with Cypress Renewables. They gave a $10,000 gift to help support housing assistance. And there they are up in at the Family Resource Center up in O'Brien Middle School. And it's really amazing to see these resources co-located, because it allows them to, you know, to use the fact that school is a trusted space for these individuals, and it gives them a great place. Yesenia, right? Yesenia, who's the staff member there, she's just incredible. And the way that she curates the resources is with such dignity and grace. Like, if you haven't had a chance to go out, please join us one of these times. I will send you guys dates. I know that the people are interested, but that I just want to make sure that I am mentioning that as we share. I also wanted to mention, just with the Community Foundation, that, you know, we are seeing people like that relationship. And so the contributions are working, and we've been able to build a little bit more awareness through that. And right now, we've raised about $390,000 towards effort this year, which is really fantastic. And we're really excited about that. One of the things I did want to share here that I just wasn't realizing at the time was just the fact that the Community Foundation will post the revenue for that. So it will look a little bit different in terms of, you know, the last time I was here, I was talking about our impact report. We'll want to make sure that we just share that with our donors so that they're fully understanding, because it might look a little different as you're, you know, if you're looking at our 990 or financial reports. And that was just something that initially I didn't think about or bring to the board. So I want to make sure I'm just being very transparent. And with that, I think those are all the updates we have. Any questions?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I think it was funny because the district's definitely taking attendance very seriously, because my daughter had an emergency appendectomy surgery, right? And so she had to get rushed to the hospital. We got it, and then we called and we're like, hey, you know, my daughter had to get her appendix out. And they were like, can you please bring us a doctor's note? And I was like, okay, like, they don't take my word for it, but I thought it was kind of fun that they're doing it, so that is good. And I would also say, while we haven't seen as much improvements at the high school level, I think that statistic is a little skewed, because when you look, especially senior year, state requirements for seat time and schedules don't always reflect, because there's a lot of like dual credit and work-based that are counted differently. And also sometimes students are having to take filler classes that they don't necessarily need to graduate. And so like the commitment to some of these classes that they just have to be there on, and how we as a state classify chronically absent. So again, I think it's just information. It's not to say there isn't work to be done, but like some of those high school, especially at the senior level, you got to take with a grain of salt, because it doesn't necessarily reflect like a lack of engagement from students. It's just, you know, so just wanted to bring that information.
I also just wanted to chime in. I'll keep this quick, but as a fellow educator in the district, the chronic absenteeism has been added to our dashboards and IC, so we can track it as well, which has been really helpful for me. And I mean, because I obviously have dual interests in this. And another thing I just wanted to say about the FRCs is that so much, and I've said this before, so much in education it can be hard to quantify, because part of what they're doing, it's not just about collecting data or matrix. Part of what they're doing is building relationships, and it's so hard to objectify that or quantify that. But we know that building a relationship with a trusted adult in the community, one that's going to partner with the school district, is just beyond critical. And sometimes we can't find a way to articulate that in a way that looks good in a board packet. Not that this doesn't look amazing, but you get my point. You can't. So that doesn't mean the magic isn't necessarily happening, even if we don't have like an exact case study number or something.
I really appreciate you guys putting that in context, because I do think overwhelmingly it speaks to the positive, side of what we're doing, but it is really hard to quantify, and it's complex data, right? And that is something we always have to keep in mind, because this issue is incredibly complex. And as much as we want to be like, hey, we're showing wins and doing that sort of stuff, it's a big story, and each student's so individual.
And maybe kind of tying it back to us too. I know that earlier this year, this board here approved over $100,000 to go to the school district for chronic absenteeism. Where is that money gone? How is it being spent? Any updates on that so far in 2025, 2026?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is supporting the middle school engagement program that serves 3 schools. So that, and we talked about that at the board meeting, but it is Billinghurst, Swope, and Shaw that is receiving those funds. And then there was a number, then we had also given about $10,000 that is going to serve a couple of middle schools with positive behavior incentives and other things that they can use to help students, kind of incentivize and get them excited about schools. And so those funds have been used exactly how we have said. Yeah, I think that's the update. So that's a good point. The funding that I mentioned in the update earlier, that's actually new funds that has come in since then.
I just wanted to add something that I just learned today, actually sort of piggybacking off of Julia. I think it's pretty innovative for our district to be doing this, but tracking the change in student attendance after they've been rewarded for attendance gains, so seeing exactly which incentives are really moving the needle, and I just don't think as many districts across the country are doing that. So that'll be fun to see where we can double down our efforts.
Yeah, I do wonder if we'll look back and think of this campaign similarly to the CARES campus, like just a space where our community really thinks about the context in which they're working, tries to work with really smart people to try to address what does it look like here locally.
And what is the involvement of the community foundation in this space? You said 340,000? And how does that work? I mean, is that just community donations? Is that stuff that has been facilitated through us, or?
Yeah, so it's a collaborative campaign, meaning that there's multiple audiences that can ask for funds. We are the ones who are doing a majority of the proposals to philanthropic foundations, but we have let people know, because as we've kind of talked about here, there's some people that don't fully understand what's happening with the district, or they may have a hesitancy, or they want to make sure that their funds are handled appropriately. And so we are working with the Community Foundation because they have an amazing reputation, and because we know that they have some of the policies that we don't quite have yet. And but the funding, a majority of that funding is coming from relationships that either we're helping to work on, or that either strengthen our communities might have had, or communities in schools. So multiple folks coming in, all for the same piece there.
And then I guess my last question with that component is how is it accessed? How does the school district get access to it, or different organizations, or whoever needs it?
That's a good question. And I realize that's why sometimes I bring back things we've talked about in prior meetings. So I can always come back to this one and address it, because it is interesting. So we have the account of the Community Foundation. It is an Education Alliances account, but those funds will go re-raised, held there, and then transferred over to the grants department. So we'll work with, kind of on the transferring process and looking at those pieces, so that we know exactly, so that when it becomes public dollars in the grants department, they know exactly what it is supposed to be used for, and then they have the appropriate donor interface.
Cool. Any other questions for Sarah on this one before we move on to the next item? All right. Up next, we'll go over to 206, which is thematically the same, kind of. This is presentation and discussion about the Gwynn Center's recent reports on educational topics, including chronic absenteeism and per pupil spending. So for that, we'll go over to Christine.
So sadly, we are deferring that presentation to next meeting. So
Okay.
more to come next
More to
time.
come next time. With that, we'll head over to 206. This is a presentation and discussion to provide an update on the merger of the Washoe K-12 Education Foundation and Ed Alliance of Washoe County, including thank you breakfast for past volunteers and some potential changes to bylaws.
Yeah, and I'm going to just speak really to the breakfast that we're having and then the bylaw section. I'm going to move to the end after the presentation because I just think it will make the most sense there, but it is coming. We are hosting an event on November 7th at AACT with past board members and volunteers so that they can learn a little bit more about the superintendent's priorities and just get a better idea of what's happening within the district. And we're really excited about that. We've had about 20 RSVPs, is that right? For those of you who were here when Melissa talked about this the last time, that the Truckee Meadows Community College Foundation did something like this, they only had about 35 attendees. And so I do think that makes sense if you're talking about, maybe it's a total audience of maybe 200 over the history of the organization. And some folks, yeah. And then you have to have viable contact information and then there's some folks that, maybe they're no longer interested, but we want everyone to really feel included. And we just really want to express our gratitude because it takes a lot to make things like this happen. Going back to the merger, we really heard you guys loud and clear. You had talked about not over communicating and focusing on the clarity of what we are planning to do for donor confusion, and so we'll be sharing that later in this meeting as well. Coming back to that along with identified changes to our bylaws that we think will just help continue to move this organization forward. So that's all I have for 2.06.
All right, any questions on that? Up next, then we'll go over to 207, presentation and discussion to provide an update on trends learned from other foundations serving educational institutions.
Okay, so I'm going to have Brittany share the handout for this one so that you guys can look. And again, the whole idea here is really, I just want to share with you some of the work that we did last year. It's hard. You have heard snippets of this over the last couple of meetings, but I was like, let's just take a couple of minutes and we'll go through some of the things that we heard as we connected with people across the field. And then go into sort of our future. So I wanted to put it in context a little bit. I, like some of you, may not know all of Education Alliance's history because it's extremely long. So do you want to go to the next slide? So really, some of the things that I thought were really interesting is that Education Alliance started with the Teacher's Warehouse in 1988. I feel like that was a standalone effort that was probably really popular that was happening. And so as we've talked about with the closure of the Teacher's Warehouse, when this first started, it had a ton of new supplies, new furniture, new things available for teachers all the time. And that, I think, was really this idea of like, how do we continue to give to teachers? It earned its official 501c3 designation in 1992. So again, it has been around for a really long time. And really throughout the history, as Brittany and I were kind of looking through the different organizations and things that had happened, it was established for community engagement. How do we get people connected to the schools and the school districts? And so you guys, again, know about the program of Partners in Education. That is a program that I heard a lot about. It used to do programming. It was inviting people in. I talked to Julia Ratty, whose first job was in Partners in Education, which I always think is so interesting. And she talked about organizing field trips with the courthouse and getting kids in and having them have that experience. So you can see that a lot of things that are still in existence now sort of evolved from this organization. We kind of broke it down into how how we were thinking about it. And it's really like the work that happened from 1993 to 2019 really was focused on sort of like the Partners in Education, the Teachers Warehouse. Under one of the executive directors, there was a significant grant that the organization had that was called the Parent Involvement Resource Centers. And it was a federal grant that allowed them to do work and host national conferences and really try to improve parent involvement. I believe the idea of Parent University came out of this, but it was a large organization. So at one point, Education Alliance, I believe, had 10 staff members, and they were working on these initiatives throughout the district, many of which have been taken in. So the partners or the Parent University and the Parent Engagement Office that is part of the district, initially sort of that idea was conceptualized and incubated in Education Alliance. Many of, and here's a nod to Chris Morgan, but the P12 or P16 Council, that was another major win that we heard about during this time frame, and it really doing, the data profile and aligning what does it look like to be a successful student P to 16, a fantastic white paper, and then some legislative changes that came out of that. And then, of course, Run for Education, the PI Awards, Principal for a Day, all of programs that you guys are familiar with. There was really good positive PR, and I think really good relationships were built, but less revenue focused really in that time frame. Then in 20 to 2022, Brittany and I felt like this was worth putting sort of in a separate time frame, because that's the time where you saw some really nimble responses to huge needs. And so the pandemic, people wanted to know, how can we help our kids? And Education Alliance had a response. We got to help them keep learning, right? Like if they're not in school because maybe somebody in their family's sick, they're going to need the resources to do it. There was a huge digital laptop drive, which many of you guys were involved in. The mental health support and really caring for classrooms all came out of that. And during that time, you really saw an increase in the philanthropic giving that was able to support these, spaces in the public education realm that just couldn't quite make it if it wasn't for philanthropic involvement. But you saw there was that, but there was still the donor confusion because there was multiple organizations. There's multiple nonprofits that serve the district. And sometimes donors are like, who do I go to support? The answer is always Education Alliance. I'm just joking. And then there's really like this, which we consider sort of this time frame where we're in now. I joined the organization. I was brought on with this idea of hopefully we can kind of look at this Education Alliance and see, where the needs are they currently and what can we do to help. And so we have just been doubling down, as you guys know, on looking at aligning. How do we do things better? What are best practices in the industry? How do we modernize a little bit of the work we're doing so that we can keep in step with the best foundations out there, and then understanding context in our donor landscape here locally. And I do think that we are showing results. We have donor interests and community interests, but we are dealing with capacity issues, as you guys know, because we're a small and mighty team. All right, next slide. So just to kind of explain, when I say the Educational Foundation key findings, what exactly this means. We met with 12 education foundation serving institutions. We went with 9 K-12 focused and 3 higher ed. A couple of those were from 4-year colleges and a couple of them were from community colleges. We also look at a number, I want to say about 10 other different websites and 990 forms to help inform some of this. And we also connected with the National Association for Educational Foundations. That's largely with a focus of the K-12 space. And so this is what we're sharing back from what we heard from those interviews. And so really just the benefits for the institution. So when I say the institution, I'm thinking, is it the college? In this case, it's Washoe County School District. But what are the benefits? Why even have, an education a foundation or, a 501c3 that is serving the same audience? And it allows donors tax benefits, and you can receive a wider range of support, right? Like if you want to leave the district in a will, it's a little bit trickier to do. If it's, then if if you have a 501c3, that's made possible. Our focus is stewarding and strengthening donor relationships, right? Like there is so much generosity that happens, but sometimes people forget to say thank you, or they forget to give back the impact. I mean, back to what Landon was saying, tell us where the dollars went, what's happening with that. And that takes time. It allows for a flexibility in funding. Sometimes the pace and projects that donors are interested in can be very different than the pace of the district, right? Or of the institution, because it just has certain parameters. It is also an additional place to advocate or to raise issues. I think the chronic absenteeism issue that we've been able to go out and talk with the community is a perfect example. The district has had many priorities. They're doing those sort of things, but they maybe can't get out there and tell all the great ways that they're doubling down and trying to help, in times. Considerations for the institution. They're legally distinct, right? So we are a legally distinct organization. We have a different set of governance. In Nevada, educational foundations started by districts are subject to OML. You got to be very transparent about where things are going, which all foundations should always be. They require financial and time investment. These things don't happen just because people don't, care. It takes a lot of volunteer time, and there are costs associated. The size and scope of deliverables really changes depending on the scope of the team. We talked to some foundations that, maybe they had 5 people. Well, you can imagine what they're able to do for their district. Quite a lot more than we talked to one person who was a one-person show. So really, the one thing that I would say that was really memorable for me out of there is they said, the role of having somebody who can do grants and proposals really makes the difference of raising several $100,000 like you can with events to, maybe millions if you can do, proposals, which you guys have seen. And then there is different financial models. I kind of compressed this into 3 different ways that I think about it, but quite honestly, the complexity, there's more. I would say there's probably 6 different ways. And again, because I'm not a tax expert, I'm not the best person to unpack all of that, but this is how that I saw it. When we talked to some of these foundations, we found that at least one of the ones we talked to was fully independent, meaning it received no resources at all from the institution it worked from. It was set up, and this is what I did here with other foundations, is more of a watchdog situation. It was a little bit more adversarial. She talked in particular about how difficult it was to be able to serve sometimes teachers because they weren't allowed to communicate with them. They couldn't ask principals, but yet they were trying to get funds in. So it was a tricky organization, and really speaks, I think, to the leadership of the educational founder or foundation leader in that space, because she was really just like, but the needs are there and we're going to keep working. We found out that they're embedded or functionally integrated. Functionally integrated is more of a tax term, but embedded meaning they get resources from the institution. They are, they're paid by the institution, all of their costs are covered by the institution, and they are driving hard towards those, things that are beneficial. We also found out that they can be independent, but receive financial or in-kind support, meaning that there may be a portion of their budget that they are paying for. They may pay for their operational staff, but, have other aspects that they're getting. They maybe only get, space inside an institution and, email or IT access. So that was really varied, but those were the different financial models. In terms of other best practices that we heard, these are the best practices that we heard. Those are more how things work. Not one size fits all. We heard this time and time again. I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to do, what do the best ones do? We're going to do exactly what they do. And they were like, your context makes all the difference. You have to know what your donors want. You have to know what the institution needs. You have to know what people feel comfortable with. Have to know what the resources are available. We heard about some that, that going back to the financial models, they had childhood, they oversaw childhood or early childhood centers that helped create a revenue base for them. Or we talked to some of them that were legislatively mandated, so they had a whole different set of rules. And so we heard some where the county or the city supported the work that they are doing, or maybe they had one large philanthropic supporter that really helped with their operational costs. So that was really really interesting. They said mission alignment was really important. That as we were talking to some of these, they talked about different chapters, or maybe they were trying to do things that were similar but different. The areas where they were more similar, they found that the metrics were easier to make. And that's probably because if you have the institution running full steam ahead in a direction, if the foundation also can be in step, it allows for those things to happen together. And I know, like just recently, I was at UNR Foundation listening to talking about how this is exactly what they will be doing with their work as they go forward, because they know Sandoval, is driving towards a vision. He has an idea of where he wants to go, and he wants to have that alignment. And then the clarity of roles, making sure that everyone involved kind of understands what's happening. So we heard about MOUs and operational agreements, just kind of spelling it out so everyone had a good idea. And then we heard regular communication, so that you're making sure that you understand what you're doing. And honestly, I think that comes back to the chronic absenteeism. While I'm so excited to talk about all the things that happen, I constantly remind people I am not the expert, right? I'm not the one who is building these relationships with the kiddos. I'm not the one who is going to these conferences to learn what is the best. I want to make sure that I am supporting the experts doing the work. And let's see, next slide. We also heard this, and I think this is really important, but either being an innovator, really being the one, who is like, we want to pilot all the cool things that, if only they could happen, they happen with a foundation, or being a convener, bringing people together to talk about like what things could be done, but how do we do a better job? So again, bringing expertise in to help with pieces, or innovating. Strong governance. So coming back to strong leadership. It's good. It's transparent. We know that people have the policies, they have everything in, and I feel like this is an organization I would invest in. High levels of transparency, and again, I think you hear me say this all the time, but everybody wants to know what's going on, where are things going, and I fully believe that is exactly how you run the best things. We shouldn't be doing anything that people are like, hey, what's going on? We're here for the students, we're supporting the students, let us tell you how. And diverse fundraising methods. So again, this idea that maybe you can do some things that are a little bit different. We have, done annual fundraising. Employee giving is an interesting idea. I definitely think we have some employees that would be really excited to help with some of the things we're doing. Appeal, specific campaigns, legacy and bequests, those being things that are available. And so just really why now, and this kind of comes back to the merger of Washoe K-12. We have an opportunity to kind of think about what is the work we're doing, what is needed in our community, how do we do it better? When I first got on board, I met with a ton of people. I literally met with people across the community. And one of the things I heard really was a lack of awareness of just some of the work or the needs, and so I think that is something we've been working on improving governance and financial processes, which, I've been talking about modernization of our systems, which I think is a great space for us to think about this. I also think there is limitations in our area, and we have heard this, and Christine will talk about this next time, but we have one of the lowest per pupil funding in the nation, right? And we know that gets in the way of our students doing their best. What the district is able to accomplish with such a small budget really is remarkable, but unfortunately, I think people in our community interpret that as, hey, we're one of the worst, when I don't think that is really a fair metric. And in talking to many parents, as I've been in this role, they don't understand. They don't understand where public dollars are limited. They don't understand things like PE and art and science. How come? They don't understand, hey, if WC1 is being taken out of my paycheck, how come there's an issue with, paying teachers? I just think there's some fundamental miscommunication. And so because WC1 has that focused support, which is capital maintenance, I think sometimes just building awareness about hey, this is a space you can go. I talk to a lot of people who are like, hey, I want to do something. What can I do to help? And I'm like, oh my gosh, let me tell you, you can support, we can make sure we're helping teachers get supplies in the classroom. We can help on this big initiative. Or if there's, you just want to designate a school that you want to help, we can help with that too. And so next slide. I just feel like this is important just to, because maybe not everybody understands just where the majority of funds come in philanthropy. I think it's good to see. You know, we have been really working with a corporate audience in the past, but you can see private foundations and individuals, it's a big deal, right? And so these are areas that I feel like as we're continuing doing our work, we want to think about how we're engaging people. And then of course, legacy and bequests are also can be amazingly helpful, make up a smaller percent. So that is that from the Giving Report? Oh, sorry, Giving USA. So that was 2025's percentage. And then next slide. These are the areas just coming back when we're talking about continuous improvement. So after looking at all this research, Brittany and I have just been trying to double down. How can we constantly come back to what we're doing right now and make these improvements? The thing that is literally holding us back right now are just the hours in the day. We are trying as hard as we can to just make sure we are aligning with what's happening. But these are the main areas that I feel like as education moves forward, that our Education Alliance, that we are really focused on. And so before I dive into sort of how I see us working and then some of those bylaw changes, I just want to ask if there's any questions.
I have a question. Could you go up to that other slide real quick? That one there. How does our donations and numbers compare to that? Oh, was that a...
No, that's a great question.
Okay.
One that we haven't really analyzed right now. If I had to say from last year, our number one category was corporate. Yep. And so we have much less. We have, if we count the tickets that everybody bought for Evening of Pure Imagination, you know, maybe we have 25 individual donors, but we tend to be, since I joined, really private foundations and corporate.
Sarah, I just want to say thank you. I obviously have seen this presentation before as you worked on it, and I know you and Brittany just really spent an absorbent amount of hours really to analyze, you know, and not look at things as business as usual, but look at how we can modernize things, how we can move forward, how we can make the biggest impact. This has been shared with the superintendent. It was shared with our chief financial officer, and it was eye-opening for all of us. So I just, while it looks nice and neat and tidy on here, the amount of work that went into it, I would be remiss if I did not mention it on both of your parts. So I just really wanted to extend huge kudos to you guys for that work.
I think the original had about 40 slides, so you guys are welcome because this is 10 slides.
But I included 40 slides worth of words just now.
Yeah, well, very in depth, and thank you for that. Just for my clarification here, so that was presentation and discussion only, right, for 207?
That's correct.
Okay. Looking at some of these things that you have brought to our attention today, what are some things that we as a board can expect to see maybe from you, from the organization, in terms of what you need from us in terms of votes, in terms of ideas, or in terms of direction? I mean, a lot was unpacked there, but what can we expect over the next couple of months or a little bit more?
That's a great question. And actually, it's going to lead us right to the next bullet. I promise you, I did not ask him to ask me that beforehand. It's so perfect. Yeah, it's true. He's truly interested, and this is great because everybody is interested. And I do feel like this is a question in particular I've gotten from Victoria, I think since the second meeting, where it was like, okay, you really got to tell us where you're going. So if we want to jump to the next bullet, agenda item, I'd like to share with you a little bit of how I see our vision and what are some of the things that we can do, and then talk about bylaws.
Sure. Do we, so let's close out 206. Was that 206? That was 207? Okay, cool. So let's close out 207 if there are no more questions, and then we'll open up 208. That's a presentation and discussion on proposed changes for Ed Alliance, including areas of focus for community involvement, fundraising, and updated bylaws. And this is for presentation and discussion only.
Okay, so one of the things that Brittany and I were trying to work on is it's really hard with your guys' time to get together and really like talk through all of these sort of pieces. So I want you to know that this is a draft document, but it is what I believe to be good work in terms of really trying to clarify, you know, why we think we're here, what we want to do, how we are running the organization right now, and you know, honestly, before we roll down, if everybody could take just 1 minute and jot on the back of your paper, why do you care about education? You have all the time in the world. You could be on so many different boards. Why is education the space that you want to spend your time? 1 minute.
Such a teacher move there, Sarah.
Okay, just take a few more seconds. It looks like most people are finished. And then Brittany, do you want to go back to our vision? So our vision for our community is all students thriving through the power of an invested community. When we were like, what do we think this end state could be like? What could it look like in 10 years if we're doing it? That's what we feel like. Our students are thriving. And that is a verb that you see people use a lot because it's more than just succeeding, right? It's like they are personally happy. They're healthy. We know that education is number one social determinant of health. When you're looking at community health assessments year over year over year, like it makes such a difference and it empowers people. But turn to the next page. You want to go down? It's our why that I think is so important. And I want to see how this compares to your why. But we believe that educated individuals transform our communities. We believe that when people have education, they have lived experiences, they get to have doors open, they get to connect with people that are different than them, that it literally transforms who we are, how we behave, and what we're able to do. And so that's really our why, you know, and not to put TJ on the spot, but when we're talking about, yeah, if you were in a 7th grader right now and we're like, TJ, how are you going to give back to the community? You might not have known at 12. And here, you know, fast forward, here's somebody who's, you know, on multiple boards, has been helping in multiple ways. And I know that we could do that across the board. I'm only just saying that because we talked about his education earlier. We believe that our core values are integrity, compassion, growth, and gratitude, and you'll see how we have defined those there. Really doing the right thing for our students every single time without question. There should never be a time where someone's like, well, Sarah, what did you do? And I can't make the dots and connect back to why we made the decision of what it would do for our students. We want to be transparent and we want to be accountable. We have compassion, which we defined as seeking to understand, listening deeply, honoring perspectives, and building connection. Growth, which is continuous learning and improvement and taking data-driven action. And I think you guys have seen that with the work that we have done around chronic absenteeism. That's part of the reason we got involved in that space. Okay, tell us what's going on. Are there evidence-based solutions? How do you know? Okay, what can we do to support? And then gratitude. I really believe showing an appreciation, acknowledging support, and being grounded in optimism is really a big deal. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but every single board meeting, we say thank you to the people who are in there day-to-day serving as teachers and educators, because we know that we couldn't do it without them. And we also are saying thank you to you, because we understand what it means to commit to this dais at least six times a month, and then all of the emails that we're sending. We think that our mission is through community generosity, we enhance opportunities for our Washoe County School District students, building the foundation of our shared future. So again, this idea that as we, have people invest, and we have seen this time and time again, our community is interested and they want to do things, and it makes a difference for our students. We serve students and educators in Washoe County School District, and our strategic alignment we have is being rooted in the Washoe County School District strategic plan. And again, that's a little bit of a change from the last conversation we had. And the reason is because I think that as we were talking to other foundations, if we can stay close to the work that's already been done to think about what needs to happen strategically out in education in the region, if we can work to help support that, we will see better success. So we have really put our focus of this work on our goals, which would be to help improve how we engage philanthropic and community partners to deliver that impact. So meaning that we can really focus on the stuff that we are trying to do, which is build awareness and improve our reputation so that people are aware that, hey, this is a way that we can support the work. We can help focus on the increase in philanthropic giving. Like, that is a major outcome we can look at. We want to run with operational excellence. Do we have the things that we need in place? And what steps can we identify to make that work happen? And then how do we create a recognized culture of philanthropy and engagement so that people are like, gosh, I'm interested. I know I have this support. I'd like to help out. If this is an area of education, is an area that they are interested in supporting, that they are aware that we can help with that. And then the impact areas. And again, this is where I feel like this is kind of a visualization of the work that we have done and potentially have identified areas of things that we can do. We have been in current priorities and school site support. That's been pretty consistent. I also put excellence and innovation out there because I do think that there is a group of philanthropists who are really interested in seeing, like, okay, we have, 98% of the funding is there, through the public school system. But what could we make happen? What could we push to the absolute best, right? And that's sometimes where philanthropy can step in. And so that's what I was calling excellence and innovation. There's really great things happening in CTE. We see a lot of the corporate involvement there. And I also think the Redfield Outreach Coordinator Program shows a perfect example of how that can be done. But potentially scholarships, right? Like, whether that's to students or teachers. School site support, we have the Partners in Education, which I always tell our principals and school leadership, we don't want to get in the way of good things happening. So if schools already have that support, the last thing we want to do is be like, oh, no, that needs to go through Education Alliance. But there are sometimes people approach us and they're like, how do I get involved? We have a event we'll be doing on November 1st where there's a new business in town and they wanted to give supplies to a specific school. And we were like, yep, let's connect you so that we can make this happen. And then, of course, the work that we've been doing with the Title I eligible and served. So I'm going to leave some time for questions or discussion around that, and then I'm going to talk about the bylaw changes that I think are important to get us there.
Anyone? I think what we should do is take this sheet, plug it into ChatGPT, and then have it provide new mission statements and stuff. I mean, I don't think we've it is being done? Great. No. I mean, we haven't revisited our mission statement in a long time. And I know that there's opportunities as a board, as an organization, to kind of look and see if that is where we want to go and how that looks. So, cool. Any other questions on this chunk of info before we go on to the next? All right. Doesn't look like it, Sarah.
And I will send out our current information so you can see what this looks like in juxtaposition, because I didn't include kind of where we are currently, but more just a direction of where I'd like to go. Okay, so then that brings us, is that the next item? Is the bylaws, or is this the same? Sorry, I think it's the same agenda item. Yep, the same agenda. Sorry about that. So then I want to just turn your attention to the bylaw changes. So I have bylaws drafted. It's 11 pages. There's really 2 articles that I really think are important. So in learning about other educational foundations, I think a best practice is really just trying to figure out this governance piece and this finance piece, right? And so in the past, this board has carried the fiduciary and legal responsibilities of the organization. Will continue to carry the fiduciary and legal responsibilities of this organization. The changes in the bylaws, in particular to Article 3, just spell that out a little bit more. So it was a little bit more vague, and it says specifically in there. So this is where I'd really like between now and the next board meeting, I think we're going to have a board meeting in November so we can actually vote on these. But I want to just kind of highlight those changes. The other place that it is coming out is in section, I believe it's 5. Let me look at the bylaw pages. I just want to make sure I'm telling you the right page. So again, page 2, big changes there. And when I say big changes, I just mean like it's spelled out. And then in section 5, where it talks about corporate bank accounts. That's a change for us. So really allowing us to get external accounts so that we can maybe do some of the work that the Community Foundation is currently doing for us, right? Like if there are, if we have folks that want to help support something that can happen year over year, having the ability to take their funds and put them into a bank account where we can earn interest or potentially do short-term investment or longer-term investment, like that is not possible right now. And so I wanted to make sure that we had that available. It is also hard in the way that because we don't have a credit card right now, there's certain things where people are like, are you sure you're legitimate? And I'm like, yeah, I'll write you a check. And so these are just things that I want to make sure that as we're moving forward and have best practices that we can do that. And so these are the bylaw changes that are there. I also did put in some changes around Article 3, Section 2, which is the number and qualification of directors. You'll see I changed, I gave us a range from 9 to 15 as opposed to 17. I also took myself off as a board member because I do not believe that to be a best practice. And so you'll just see that in there. But those are the main changes. And again, I believe that to be in line with what we heard from the other foundations. How are we going to go forward? Making sure that we have a little bit of a fiscal wall between so that our donors know that we are thinking about them. We'll have the Donors' Bill of Rights. We want to go forward so that we know that their funds are being used accordingly. But also, again, working in coordination with the support because we only exist to serve students at Washoe County School District, and that's really important for people to understand. That is our core audience. And so again, just more clarification in the language of these bylaws that I'm going to propose that we vote on probably next month. We don't have a scheduled meeting. I just felt like it was too much to try to vote on it today with everything else that I've shared. So with that, I'm going to leave it to you guys for questions.
Just for the record, Sarah, you were talking about one of the pronounced changes as fiduciary, spelling out fiduciary obligation, and then there was another term used. Fiduciary and...
Legal. I just said, yeah.
Yep, got it.
Sarah, is it possible to see a draft of the bylaws that has the new language alongside the current language so we can see what the changes are before voting? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll do that after this meeting.
Okay.
I'll send our current bylaws and these ones as well.
Do they look pretty similar? Or is this just a completely brand new document?
They're really similar. I will say the one piece that I am just want to make sure I do full research on and might bring back is we might change a little bit of the subcommittees. I don't know that I have all the language completely spelled out that we need for open meeting law. And so that might be a section that changes a little bit, but only those couple of articles that I mentioned are really the big changes. Almost everything else is pretty similar. It might it might be written just a little bit different. I did change the NRS that requires us to have open meeting law. I made sure it was more specific to the educational foundations and not just the institution. But by and large, I think you'll see it. And I'll make sure I highlight those changes so you're not like having to read all 11 pages, side to side.
I just want to say I so appreciate the strategic direction that you and Brittany have offered this board in terms of, where you've seen us operate, where you think we should go in the future. I'd love to know if you have any ideas about, from a programmatic standpoint. I think that one of your documents, I think at the very end of the EA, why and how, spelled out the impact areas that you're hoping to see. What should we expect as board members in terms of programmatic changes from Education Alliance? I know, this year we've, for instance, decided to move away from our Evening of Pure Imagination fundraiser. What other kinds of strategic programmatic changes could we be looking at over the next year?
So that's a really good question. So when I think about programs, I think we are out of the business of programs by and large. And that's because I believe the work that we're doing is really trying to build philanthropic support for things that are already happening. So in my mind, when I think about that, I think about the operational excellence that Washoe County School District already has. So how do we support them? That doesn't mean that we won't have necessarily like events or build out programs like, a giving circle I could see us doing. I could see us coming back and having an event. To me, those feel more like strategies on how we build awareness. So I'll be building some of that out a little bit more, but I think sometimes, and I don't know that that is necessarily what was happening with Education Alliance before, but sometimes people were like, what is your programmatic? Well, you need staff and capacity to do that. And I want us to get out of the way of that and really trying to help, like lift up what's already happening there. But in terms of like, what other things do we see? I could see us coming back to the Partners in Education Awards. I could see us coming back. We kind of talked about a lunch principle for a day. I also think is really great in terms of building relationships and pieces, but we'll always want to come back to the so what, and the what on that piece is like, how can we invite you to be involved, with your resources with our public education students? Mm-hmm. Does that answer the question?
I think so. Okay. And I think in concert with this idea that Education Alliance is a convener, it sounds like you're just looking to put a finer point on what that actually means. That we're not necessarily a convener around programs necessarily, but a convener around things that are going to be in strategic alignment with the district, whether that means a giving circle to promote philanthropy, or whether that means a community discussion around chronic absenteeism and progress that's potentially being had. That's what it sounds like, if I'm understanding correctly. That it's not, it almost sounds like it's, in some ways, yes, a clean slate in terms of walking away potentially perhaps from some more historic programs, but that it's in service to convening around strategic goals.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example where we have already done that really as an organization, and with your guys' sort of buy-in, is when it came to the school supplies, like those drives. We met with 4 other nonprofits all serving the district, and we realized there isn't actually anyone bringing people together to be like, okay, here's the full map of the district, who's serving what schools, right? And so that was a perfect place that it was like, okay, let's convene together, let's make it easy, and let's make sure that, if you're serving that school, then I won't with my limited resources, right? I think the work that we've seen with the Renovation Foundation is another great example of that. We get to lean into the already amazing resource or, leadership at these middle schools that are doing it, and they're like, hey, we want to support it. And we're like, how can we help you connect and elevate the work that you're already going to do in a way that is beneficial, because we know all these other places are working on chronic absenteeism. We can help for that. And, it just magnifies the impact a little bit, especially because there's a lot of smaller nonprofits that want to serve the district, but there's also some really big ones too. So that's just an example of kind of things that we have been doing that I think kind of gives you an ish of what that could look like.
Christine, I think something that came to mind when you were talking. If you think of like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, you know exactly what they do. They're mentorship. There's other pieces to it, but that's at the heart of what they do. When you think of public education, there's so many needs that can be filled, and I think Sarah's done a really excellent job of truly focusing in, okay, what's the highest impact area that we can step into, and that's been chronic absenteeism. And it probably will be for a little bit longer, I think at least a couple more years in terms of the campaign. Another area that I think might need help in the future is early childhood. I know that's definitely on the boilerplate there, but remaining somewhat flexible so that we can serve the highest priority needs, whatever changes down the road.
I think that leads another question. Sorry, because I'm back after being gone for months on maternity leave. I'm asking too many questions, but because we are aligning ourselves so closely to the district strategic plan, are we getting a reciprocal hand in Education Alliance also being able to be at the table when strategic planning is taking place at the district? Like, is there a reciprocal relationship there where whether it's, people, Education Alliance staff or board members to be able to participate in that process?
So as a district employee, I can answer that. We have not had the upcoming discussions on the strategic plan. This strategic plan goes until 2026, and then it was just extended by a year. So when those discussions happen, you will absolutely be a part of that, because we're wanting to bring in community members, just like we did that original one, and have people represented on that. So yes, and that'll be in a couple years to come.
And I do want to say that it has been really, just in my time here, like meeting with Dr. LaMarca and Rochelle Murillo, who you guys know we're supporting their efforts, like learning about the intricacies and getting to see what they're doing, I feel like has been really impactful in terms of the work we're doing, right? And I could imagine a space if I was like, oh, I think I need to come up with a programmatic space, how just that would butt heads, but they have been nothing but like, yes, let me share information. How can I help what's going on? How can we do those sort of things? So in terms of that, the reciprocity has been really nice.
Okay, swear just one more. I promise. I can't help myself. So because of the shifts in Education Alliance and our strategic priorities and what we're doing, I think that, raises some questions then about what we do as board members and what our core competencies should be as board members. If you were to say, I'm sure this is going to require much more discussion, but if you were to, say your top 5 items of a board member's job description moving forward, what would they be?
It's funny because I just told Brittany this today. I was like, we need to work on board member job descriptions and really update some of that communication. You guys know that a lot of the onboarding documents you have will need to change with this. I think you can tell my style is real co-creation, and I will always share probably, to the point where you're like, oh my God, 90 minutes for reals. But I want you guys in the loop, right? Like I always want you guys to have that information. For me, I know that people say this to me all the time. I'm not a fundraiser. That's not my style. I don't want to ask for money. I don't know that a lot of people like to do that. But what I do think we can do is be ambassadors. I do think, and I never asked you to share your why, and it's very intentional. I want you to check your why next to what we wrote down. You're here for a reason, right? And so I just think, number one, being an ambassador and inviting people in. Honestly, if people have never heard of Education Alliance, by you saying, I really like Education Alliance, they're doing these things, this is their why, that is the sort of thing that I think is the number one thing I need from all board members, because it's so impactful. And then if you're like, oh, my friends, my colleagues, whoever hasn't heard about them, how can I connect you to Sarah? Like those are like 1 and 2, I would say. Really 3, like a willingness to learn as well. I cannot tell you how much I have had to learn in this job in 18 months, I guess it's almost 2 years now. will be next month. But I have had to learn so much, and so I think that the board, you have to be willing to sign up for that sort of stuff, because you listen to Kalen talk. Kalen has that expertise because he has spent years and years here, right? And so I would say a willingness to learn, connecting, and then I really think we're going to get to a space. I'd really like to see us bring back an event. So having the time and willingness to gather people and some of that sort of working board mentality, I think that's going to have to be something, especially with us being so small. And then just individual expertise. So everybody has a perspective. If you don't feel like your perspective is being incorporated or we haven't talked about it, that's where I think coming back, that's where the richness of the board lies, right? Your expertise, your lived experience, who you know, all of those sort of pieces. But if we're here for common values and a common why, we can truly make a big impact. So that's kind of 5, but I will work on getting a more formalized piece so you can be like, I am doing that. I do have this. Yeah.
Christina, any more? No, I'm kidding.
And sorry,
Caleb.
I think, and I don't know if it's not for today, because we've talked a lot, and I've mentioned this before about the chronic absenteeism and understanding that is the outcome, but the how, right? And I think chronic absenteeism is so broad. It is challenging to talk to folks and say, hey, okay, well, what are you guys doing? Well, we're combating chronic absenteeism. Okay, well, how? And there's so many components. So I think it would be meaningful for us as an organization to really dial in what's our lane in that, because I think that there is a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of lanes that the district takes, but what is, as from a private sort of industry standpoint, I think we fit better in different lanes. And one that always pops out, which is part of the district's strategic plan, is the expansion of extracurricular activities. I think clubs and activities, the arts, the dramas, the music, the band, the orchestra, the athletics, those things lend themselves more so to private industry because you can find people who are passionate in specific fields. And whether that's bringing a robotics club to a school or a STEM program or a gardening program or something, there's going to be businesses that are more attached in line. And then you can reach out and there's a clearer, kind of more tangible ask. Hey, we're trying to implement, a hydroponics program over in partnership with university over at one of the high schools. And then you're reaching out directly to organizations that are in that field. And so I think it's just cleaner. So just something to think about, and it is part of the district's strategic plan. It's one of their top priorities that they're highlighting. So I think, for a different time, chat more about that.
I think it also comes back to what Sarah was presenting earlier. I mean, why do we care about chronic absenteeism? Because if you're not an educated individual, you're probably not going to transform your community, right? If people get hung up on that term, chronic absenteeism.
Also, going back to the strategic alignment, that is, chronic absenteeism is never mentioned in the strategic plan of the Washoe County School District. It's academic success, but that's where it aligns because we realize there's no academic success without getting students there. But I agree with you. I think having just a menu of how people can get involved is really powerful. And keep in mind, we have been focused on funds. So, and we will be, but I do think that there's a space that if corporate is no, we don't want to do this, but we're really interested in that, having that aligned. I just am always so cautious that I want to make sure that I'm supportive of leadership and not getting in the way. So to your point, if there's more people who want to help us coordinate that, I think it's really powerful because then the principals don't feel like I'm here you go, right, when they're already so busy in all of the pieces. So just in terms of those relationships.
And I just wanted to add one thing because I think you are spot on, Kaylin, when we're talking about chronic absenteeism. If you've heard Superintendent Ertz out in the community, he's really talking about student engagement because sometimes you will have, say, for example, a student who has some medical issues and they are now chronically absent because they've been out for all that period of time. They're gonna stay chronically absent, and if we're improving it, the student's still chronically absent, so you haven't solved obviously that issue. And there's other students who have missed for a variety of reasons, but now they're no longer missing. But again, they still already have that label, if you will, because of that. And so I think that student engagement portion rather than the chronic absenteeism is kind of the shift of where I think we need to go.
Yeah. All right. So then, what's next? That's my question. With these bylaws, we'll discuss these at the next meeting and have time to get into the weeds a little bit more.
I'm going to propose that we meet in November, try to do it quickly before the end of the year, if everyone's okay with it. November and December are really busy months, so those are really hard. But I'd like to have a meeting where you guys we can vote on the bylaws, have a chance if we want to discuss sort of the mission, vision, values piece that we put together, and then kind of just talk maybe a little bit more about the strategies that may be upcoming, end of year giving, and then talking about future event. But so that's what I would say, voting on the bylaws next.
All right, we'll stand by for that. Up next, we'll go over to 209, presentation and discussion from UNR. Share some highlights about the 2025 Nevada System of Higher Education. Dave.
Okay, so we just got done with I was late today because President Sandoval was doing his State of the University talk, and it went for an hour and a half, but we will trim it down. And I'll talk specifically things that I think are really important to K-12. There's a bunch of initiatives that were happening last year, and there was a lot of effort to, through the legislative process, that there seemed a lot of interest in supporting adolescent and early childhood mental health care. So there's been a lot of programs on campus in our social work program, in our education programs in HDFS, Human Development Family Sciences, in our psychology department. A lot of programs are putting together certificate programs for practitioners in the field. Some are graduate programs, some are undergraduate kind of certificates to help teachers and counselors and it might be daycare workers, these people that are first line individuals, to get some training to support mental health care of adolescents or minors. So that's a lot of things coming down the pipe related to that. That's a big priority for NGN, the state. So I know there's a big push in Clark County, but that's, that bleeds over to us in a big way. So I think this will be really useful for the district and people working in this area. The other thing that we were talking about was the growth in our concurrent enrollment programs. We grew another 20% this year, so we have over 8,000 students. We're serving 40 different high schools. In Washoe County, I think now we are going to be in every high school soon. So the last 3 high schools we weren't in were Washoe, Reno, and Gerlach. And actually, we were talking about developing some specific programs to support Gerlach because they are, a rural community that really needs that kind of support. So we're trying to develop opportunities to offer college courses in those settings, doing concurrent enrollment courses, supporting their faculty. The president today talked about we're already talking about the biennial budget process and what our priorities are going to be for the university. And 2 of the priorities were around concurrent and dual enrollment. We're going to ask to get state support for dual enrollment programs that are targeting Title I schools, specifically students from Title I schools. Right now, with federal funding kind of being a little iffy, districts are going to have to start shifting around how they support programs. So we think this is an important program, not just for UNR, for all the community colleges, all the partners in the state that are working in this area to provide access to college courses, experience of taking college courses to high school students, be it dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment, where we're actually having the high school teachers teach the courses or having college professors teach the courses, just providing access and scholarships for that. The other priority that we're having is going to be working with teachers that are interested in teaching college courses in high schools, or even in the community colleges, developing credentialing, well, not credentialing, but graduate opportunities, graduate educational opportunities for these teachers to be qualified to teach, independently teach college courses. Right now, we work in a lot of Title I schools, and again, some of those schools don't have teachers with master's degrees or a lot of graduate training within their disciplines. So oftentimes, a lot of the a lot of schools won't have them do concurrent enrollment courses with them. In our situations, we provide a lot of oversight. So if they don't have that credential, I shouldn't say credential, but those educational criteria, a master's degree, and I think we're looking at like 14 to 18 credits of graduate training in their discipline. So, a history teacher, 18 graduate credits. We kind of are overseeing them. We meet them once a week. We kind of treat like we would treat a graduate student. But we like them to be independent. After they teach for us for a couple of years, we think that they should be independent and be able to teach. And for us to do that, we're working on them getting credentialing. So that's fine. We're developing these programs, but there's a cost associated with it. So right now, because they're officially UNR employees, because we compensate them for teaching for us, we're offering grant and aid opportunities for them to get discounted tuition to teach those, to take those graduate courses. The one thing that we're making sure that happens is we know that these teachers have lives and they have a primary job. So being able to get that kind of training, we're trying to work within their schedule, developing online and kind of year-long courses for them to get that kind of credentialing. So President Sandoval says, since we want this to happen, we should pay for it. So we're trying to work for the state to cover that whole cost. We are already going to cover a good chunk of the cost institutionally, but we're kind of working in that direction. And other than that, a lot of good stuff happening at the university, but not necessarily something that's directed towards of interest to K-12. So that's where we're at. So, thanks. Oh, and you guys have a birthday. Dean's Future Scholars is having a big anniversary. So what year is that? 25th anniversary. So you got called out in the talk today.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Oh, I missed that. So anyway, so thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Dave. We'll move on to item 301, public comment. Brittany, any public comment at this time?
We do not have any.
All right. Announcement for the next meeting is going to be item 302. We'll stand by for that, so check your emails. We'll make sure we get that posted and out to everyone at an appropriate time. And with that, we did meet the 90 minutes. 5:28. We'll adjourn. Thank you, everyone.